A few years ago, I was sitting with a woman who said something I haven't forgotten. She looked at me and said, "I don't know when it happened. I just know that somewhere along the way, I stopped trusting myself, not trusting her decisions, not trusting her instincts, not trusting her memory, herself." And if I'm honest, I think that's one of the most painful things a person can lose. Because when we talk about manipulation, we often talk about what someone else is doing to us. We talk about the lies, we talk about the control, we talk about the behaviors. But what I've learned from years of research and from listening to thousands of stories is that the deepest wound isn't always what another person takes from us. It's what we slowly surrender: our confidence, our certainty, our connection to our own experience. And that's what I want to talk about today. Not just how manipulation works, not just how gaslighting works, but how we begin finding our way back to ourselves after we've spent so much time doubting what we know. Because if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, you're not alone. If you've ever replayed a discussion over and over in your head, trying to figure out what happened, you're not alone. If you've ever apologized for something and then later wondered why you apologized in the first place, you're not alone. And if you've ever had the experience of thinking, maybe the problem is me, when something deep inside you was telling you otherwise, you're definitely not alone. One of the biggest misconceptions about gaslighting is that it's obvious. We imagine dramatic scenes. We imagine blatant manipulation. We imagine someone openly trying to convince us that reality isn't real. But most people don't describe it that way. Most people describe it as confusion. They describe feeling like the ground beneath them is constantly shifting. They describe second-guessing themselves. They describe becoming less and less certain of things they once knew with confidence. And that's what makes gaslighting so powerful. It doesn't usually begin by attacking your reality. It begins by attacking your trust in your reality. There's a difference, a huge difference, because if someone can convince you that your memory is unreliable, they don't have to argue about what happened anymore. If someone can convince you that your feelings are exaggerated, they don't have to address why you're hurt. If someone can convince you that your instincts are flawed, they don't have to explain why something feels wrong. Eventually, the argument moves inside of you, and that's where the real damage happens, because now you're carrying the conversation long after it ends. You're debating yourself, questioning yourself, correcting yourself, doubting yourself. And the truth is, that kind of self-doubt is exhausting. I know many of us understand that exhaustion intimately. It's the exhaustion of trying to make sense of something that never quite makes sense. It's the exhaustion of constantly needing proof that you remember correctly, proof that you aren't overreacting, proof that what happened actually happened, proof that your feelings are justified. And here's what I know for sure. The moment we begin needing evidence to convince ourselves of our own experience, something important has happened. We've become disconnected from our self-trust. Now, before we go any further, I want to acknowledge something important. Human memory isn't perfect. None of us remembers everything accurately all the time. We all misunderstand things occasionally. We all make mistakes. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about patterns. We're talking about relationships where questioning yourself becomes the norm instead of the exception, where confusion becomes familiar, where certainty becomes rare, where your experience is repeatedly minimized, dismissed, or redefined. And what makes this especially difficult is that many of us are already vulnerable to it, not because we're weak, not because we're naive, but because we're human. Human beings are wired for connection. We want belonging. We want relationships to work. We want to believe the people we love. We want to assume good intentions. And sometimes that desire for connection becomes so strong that we're willing to doubt ourselves before we're willing to doubt the relationship. Think about that. Many of us would rather question our own reality than risk losing a connection. And while that response makes sense, it comes at a cost. Because every time we ignore what we know to be true, every time we dismiss a feeling that deserves attention, every time we override an instinct that is trying to protect us, we move a little farther away from ourselves. Not all at once, a little at a time. One conversation, one dismissal, one rationalization, one apology, until one day we find ourselves asking a question that breaks my heart every time I hear it. What if I'm the problem? And maybe you've asked that question. Maybe you've whispered it to yourself late at night. Maybe you've carried it for years. Maybe you've built entire stories around it. But what I've learned is that asking that question isn't always evidence that you're the problem. Sometimes it's evidence that you've spent too long carrying responsibility for things that were never yours to carry. One of the researchers whose work has influenced me deeply once said that when people experience chronic invalidation, they often begin abandoning their own internal signals. And I think that's exactly what many of us do. We stop listening, not because we don't have instincts, but because we've learned not to trust them. We stop honoring our feelings, not because we don't have them, but because we've been taught that they don't matter. We stop speaking our truth, not because we don't know it, but because we've learned that speaking it comes with consequences. And over time, self-abandonment starts feeling normal. That's the part I want us to sit with for a moment, because the opposite of healing isn't pain. The opposite of healing is disconnection. Disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from our experience, disconnection from the wisdom that lives inside us. The good news is that self-trust can be rebuilt. Not instantly, not perfectly, but steadily. And rebuilding it doesn't start with confronting the other person. I think that's where many of us get stuck. We think healing begins when they finally admit what happened, when they apologize, when they understand, when they validate our experience. But what if healing doesn't begin there? What if healing begins when we stop waiting? What if healing begins when we decide that our experience matters, even if someone else refuses to acknowledge it? That's a different kind of freedom, and it's a different kind of courage, because courage isn't always standing up to someone else. Sometimes courage is standing up for yourself. Sometimes courage is believing your own experience before anyone else confirms it. Sometimes courage is saying, this is what I remember, this is what I felt, this is what happened for me, and allowing that to be enough. One of the simplest practices I know for rebuilding self-trust is something that sounds almost too small to matter. Pay attention. Pay attention to what happens in your body. Pay attention to what happens after certain conversations. Pay attention to moments when your chest tightens. Pay attention to moments when you feel relief. Pay attention to the people around whom you feel safe to be yourself. Pay attention to the people around whom you feel the need to explain yourself constantly. Our bodies often recognize what our minds are still trying to negotiate. And while those signals aren't proof, they're information. Important information. The second practice is learning to replace judgment with curiosity. Instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask what am I feeling? Instead of asking why am I so sensitive, ask why did that hurt? Instead of asking am I overreacting, ask what is this reaction trying to tell me? Curiosity creates space, and healing needs space. The third practice is boundaries. And I know boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you've spent years believing your job was to keep everyone else comfortable. But boundaries aren't walls. They're clarity, they're honesty, they're an expression of self-respect. Sometimes a boundary sounds like, I remember that differently. Sometimes it sounds like, I'm not willing to argue about my feelings. Sometimes it sounds like, we see this differently, and that's okay. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to remain connected to yourself, because manipulation depends on one thing above all else: your disconnection from your own reality. And every time you stay connected to your experience, you weaken that dynamic. Every single time. As we close, I want to leave you with something I've come to believe deeply. Healing from manipulation isn't about becoming harder. It's not about becoming suspicious. It's not about building walls around your heart. It's about rebuilding trust. Trust in your instincts, trust in your feelings, trust in your voice, trust in your experience. And that rebuilding happens one small act at a time. One memory you stop questioning, one feeling you allow yourself to honor, one boundary you choose to keep, one truth you decide not to take back. The bravest thing we can do is remain connected to ourselves in a world that often encourages us to disconnect. And if you've spent years doubting yourself, I want you to hear this. You don't need permission to trust yourself. You don't need unanimous agreement to honor your experience. You don't need someone else's approval to believe what you know. Your voice matters. Your feelings matter. Your experience matters. Not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. And maybe putting a stop to being manipulated isn't ultimately about changing another person. Maybe it's about coming home to yourself again and again and again until trusting yourself no longer feels radical. It simply feels natural. And what I know for sure is this: the journey back to yourself may be slow, but every step is worth taking, because the person waiting for you at the end of that journey is the one you've been missing all along. Good luck, not in becoming someone new, but in finally coming home to who you already are.